When we, the adults, are exchanging words or trading blows, or even bullets, it's our children who are often caught in the crossfire. Whether they see, hear, or experience violence directly from an early age, they bear the scars.
And when the perpetrators are not even strangers, but trusted parents or caregivers, the trauma is even worse. Crime through the eyes of our children. That's where we take you today on CS311.
Crime Stop Jamaica 311 in association with TVJ, Musson Foundation, National Bakery, King Alarm and Grace Kennedy present CS311 with Deirdre Dixon and Leroy Hall.
It's easy to let fear rule our lives, to turn a blind eye to uncomfortable situations. We all value our safety, and sometimes we feel safest when we refuse to get involved. What would you do if you saw a child being attacked on a bus, an older man harassing a young girl, or even a parent brutalizing a child? This is our daily reality.
And in a society in which as many as half the reported cases of rape involve a minor, it feels like all of us are letting our children down. Jamaica's Child Development Agency focuses on the care and protection of our children. We spoke to them recently about crimes against children and on how we can do more to protect our young.
Recent information coming out of the Office of the Children's Registry is that of the 14,000 cases of abuse, approximately 7,000 of those cases are cases of neglect. And we're realizing that persons are not yet understanding how important supervision and presence is, because usually when children are neglected, it normally leads to other forms of abuse. Now, victims of crime, they have children, perpetrators have children, and so children are always affected in some way or another. Sexual abuse crimes, children are really targeted because they are vulnerable. We normally look for the weaker vessel to attack, and so children are seen in that light. And so you realize that sexual offenses, children will top those kinds of crimes.
It was my uncle that molested me at age 12. I tell my grandmother about it, but she did not believe me. She said that I was lying. So I kept it to myself for years until I could find a way to get out of the situation. It happens night upon night, almost every night. I can remember one night wearing shorts to bed and to prevent the abuse, but it didn't stop. My uncle used a scissors to cut my shorts just to have sex with me. I tell my grandmother, she still disbelieves. It happened that she see for herself, but she did nothing about it. So I started to cry. I started to write, because I said if I tell my grandmother, who else would believe me if she didn't believe me? So I started to write and dealing with things on my own. It became very stressful at times, because being sexual abuse, it leaves a scar and it hurts knowing that I'm a child and I was living an adult life. And it was like nothing to my uncle, but it was painful for me because going to school, I could not concentrate on my schoolwork. Each time I go to school, I'll be like crying in the classroom or stay by myself, so I will withdraw from activity at school, not doing my schoolwork, feeling down, wanted to talk to somebody but don't know who to talk to. Each time I said that I'm going to the police station, my grandmother would stop me from going because I realized that she was preventing her son from getting locked up, or what the community persons will say in the community. But it reached to a point where one person know what was going on in the community, what was going on between me and my uncle. So one day I was at school, standing talking to my friends, and she came down by the school and she shouted out, "Hey girl, them the life that you want to live, make your uncle if you're off." And same time, my friends look at me and I run off to the classroom and I started to cry. And one of my friends came in the class and said, "Is it true, Monique?" And I said, "No, it's not." And she said that you're lying to me. And I told her that if I tell you, you can't tell anybody because I don't have anywhere to go and my uncle would kill me. So my friend asked her mom if I could stay there. Her mom said yes. So I basically get out of the abuse, and yes, it was reported to the police. Nothing came out of it. I was going to court at one point, and I get to understand that as a child, you alone can't stand in front of the judge. The judge won't see you. So my case was unsolved. Yes, my uncle is still around, and the person asking me if I forgive him. I forgive both my uncle and my grandmother. Reason being, because I don't want to have their burden on me. I have a life to live and a future to go after. And after there, my life has changed. In 2012, I found an organization called E for Life, where yes, they play a great part in my life by supporting me, but not only me, other girls that been in the same situation. I just have that warm touch for them, as in because I was this type of person. After being abused, I withdraw from most of my family members, people in the world. So my message for Jamaica are for persons that going around and committing this act. You need to stop, think. Just remember that you have a mother, you have a sister, you have an aunt. Just remember that each time you raise your hand or tends to pull down your pants, just remember that yes, it's a female that bring you here. You need to stop. It hurts. It leaves scars on us survivors, and it takes time to heal as well. So I'm asking persons that doing that, please stop. It's time. Leave the children, let they grow. No go there.
Children have rights, and they have right to be protected from all kinds of abuse. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal and emotional abuse. They have the right to be protected from their parents, and not only their parents, but any adult or any guardian who they are living with. So they have those rights, and those rights we seek to protect under the law.
If you can do anything to help a child in need, please, it's our duty to step in, even by making just one call. Next up, our featured crime.
Thursday, April 13, 2017. Freetown Road, Clarendon, in an area called Bucktown, near Rasta Corner. The Blake brothers were asleep in their room, unaware of what was about to happen. The three murderers escaped into the night, leaving 2 dead and yet another devastated Jamaican family in their wake. Ricardo Blake was only 16 years old, and his brother Richard Blake, 19. They leave behind their mother and 4 younger siblings whose lives have been changed forever by these brutal murders.
Life is very different now because they're not around anymore. Whenever I remember them, I feel so sad. Very sad. First one, you would go out and work. Whatever I work, you carry. You take some and give me. And I could take it and like buy food or anything for the rest of the kids. And I want the public to know that they're not gunmen. They're very innocent. Especially the second one, they don't talk. They don't even go on the road. They're very nice, decent person. And they don't involve in no guns. That's as what the news says. I just pray to God and hope that I get justice.
It's terrifying to be a victim of violence. No doubt worse when you're a child. Please don't let this crime go unpunished.
Don't hide it. Tell it. If you know anything that can lead to the arrest of those responsible for this crime, the number to call is 311. Remember, Crime Stop does not use *69 or caller ID. Did you know that the law views crimes against children so seriously that you can be considered guilty even if you're not directly involved but have knowledge of the crime?
For example, creating or sharing pornographic material involving minors makes you liable under the law. Here are some other facts that you should know.
Did you know? Brought to you by Musson Foundation. Children are some of our most vulnerable and most in need of protection. Under Jamaican law, a child is anyone under the age of 18. Children, although young, have rights. For example, the Child Care and Protection Act gives a child of sufficient age and maturity the right to form his or her own views, and the right for those views to be taken into account when decisions relating to the child are made. A child can never be considered property. If anyone participates in any way in selling or trafficking a child for any purpose, they may be fined or imprisoned for up to 10 years. Sexual offenses against children carry even more serious penalties. Inviting, coercing, or forcing any sexual act upon a child under 16 is grievous sexual assault and can lead to up to 15 years of imprisonment. And parents, many of our laws apply to you. Did you know that anyone who has custody of a child and sends them out to beg on the streets or at any premises is actually, under the law, committing an offense? These are the facts. Educate yourself. Protect our children.
Sexual grooming is one of the most disturbing, vile, deeply ingrained assaults against children that I have come across in working with Caribbean kids. And one of the reasons why it disturbs me so much is that it's across the Caribbean. It's a part of our culture. It is so widely accepted by families that it's almost seen as a rite of passage for a child to be attractive to an older person who will provide them with gifts in exchange for preparing them to be assaulted. Sexual grooming is very, very common. It is conducted by anybody who can get an opportunity to spend time with a child. And one of the things that I find disturbing is not that there are adults who feel that they have a right to do this, but that there are parents who feel that the benefit, the financial or the economic benefit of this activity is worth it to them to sacrifice their child's integrity and physical safety.
Some of the options we have for children who are victims of abuse when the state get involved is, first and foremost, we seek to find another safe space for the child. And the first option is to find a relative. Now, failing that, we normally seek to place a child in foster care. If no relative, somebody who is not a relative but is willing and able and is approved by the agency, is normally used for providing, a nurturing environment for this child. Another option is what we call institutional care. Now, the children are placed in a place of safety or a children's home for that matter, depending on the case, because we would assess the case properly and seek to place the child in one of the facilities that could cater to the needs of that child. Some children are abused and cannot return to family members at all, and sometimes they don't even have any family members to return to. So those children, if it is possible, are made free for adoption and would just be placed on the adoption list. As it relates to children's homes and places of safety, we have 59 in total. 9 of those are government-operated facilities, and the others are privately operated facilities. Of course, as it relates to child pornography, there is the Child Pornography Act of 2009, and of course the Act states that producing, circulating, or having in your possession pornography involving children is an offense. So therefore, it is wrong to produce it, it is wrong to circulate same, and it is wrong even to be in possession. Where we sit in Child Development Agency, we see every day how children are negatively affected to the point where some of them contemplate suicide, some of them become very depressed. ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. These normally happen early in the child's life, but left unchecked, the child normally becomes so maladjusted and so affected by these kinds of abuse and violence, so they become non-functional. At school, they're not functioning, so they become underperformers. And if parents can get it right, then we would not be going through some of these experiences with our children, because the children begin at home. That's where they start life. That's where the early experiences are created. And if the parents are going to be doing a good job, then the country would be heading in the right direction. We're spending millions of dollars these days on crime, but all of these persons who are committing crime, they were children. And I believe in my heart that if some of these parents did a better job, then of course these children would have different outcomes. So I'm saying parents need to just wake up and seek to parent their child in the right way.
When we come back, we bring you safety tips, especially for children.
Safety tips brought to you by King Alarm.
I think children are most vulnerable to attack in 2 particular locations. Number 1, where they're at home but playing outside in the street, and number 2, at school. When they're in the street, there's all sorts of things can happen to them. They can fall over and injure themselves, but predators can also prey on children when in the street, and they're not within good ear distance of the parents. I would suggest that they play in the garden, not outside the garden. Stay within the boundaries. Schools are chaotic. All sorts of people turn up at schools. Children come out without their book or their bag or their plimsoll and have to run back inside, and cars park all over the place. That's a great place, sadly, for predators to prey on young children. In terms of transportation to and from school, they're going to be taking buses, but they need to know which bus they've got to take. Please don't let children get on the wrong buses. You never know where they're going to end up, and they might not have a phone with them or anybody to help them. A great bit of advice is to give your child a password. So if they are approached by strangers, They can ask the stranger, what's the password? If they don't come with the password, then the children must run away as fast as possible.
Hello, Keisha, right? Oh, is your mommy sent me to collect you? I'm your uncle, distant uncle. No, she said she had to go to the doctor because she had an emergency. They gave you a password? Sweets? No? Chocolate? No. Neesberry? Don't come here to me, don't run away.
Those were valuable tips, not just for minors, but for everyone to keep in mind.
As a pediatric surgeon and childcare specialist, Dr. Caroline Pinnock-Jackson knows only too well that children are often easy targets for criminals and even for scammers who introduce them to criminal activity. She shares some valuable advice with parents on Watch That Scam.
Scams that include sending your money on the cell phone and so on will involve anybody who has a phone, and so children are not spared from that. But when we talk about getting children out of their parents' protection or out of the protection of school and into particularly dangerous situations where they'll be used as gun runners or gang representatives, or even in a situation where children in Jamaica are flown out of the country to be involved in sex trafficking events, is something that's happening that we don't talk about and we're not aware of. Older kids in high school, they're contacted through the internet, they get a hold of their passport, they can email or Snapchat pictures of their passport to the person who is going to buy their e-ticket for them. They tell their parents they're spending the weekend with a friend and they're never seen again. This is not something that parents are warning their children about, and there are a lot of teenagers who they want to get away, they want to be defiant, they want to discover things that their parents are shielding them from, and there are a lot of teenagers whose parents actually have no clue what the children are doing. I think it's really important that parents, even if you don't like technology, you have to understand it. You have to be able to go on your child's Facebook page and know what you're looking for. You have to have that discussion about how you use your smartphone, and have the discussion that as the mom or as the dad, I can look in your phone and we can do it together. You can explain, but the whole essence of the balance between privacy and safety is a very tricky thing. And ultimately, a parent has a responsibility to trust their child, to teach the child, and to protect the child. It's very difficult, but it has to be done.
We must stand up for our children. The private sector organization of Jamaica has established a reward fund administered through Crime Stop to specifically promote reduced violence against children.
Rewards of up to $150,000 will be given to those who provide information leading to the arrest and prosecution of anyone who has injured, raped, murdered, or otherwise harmed someone under the age of 18 years old.
Many thanks to our sponsors, Musson Foundation, National Bakery, King Alarm, and Grace Kennedy.
That's our show for today. We continue our fight against crime next week on CS311.